So we're going to be looking at integer operations in this video. So there are 4 integer operations: adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. This is really just a review, so we're going to go quickly through each one of these just to sort of help you remember what you might have forgotten from last week. But you're going to be using these operations quite a bit, so it's important that you feel comfortable with them. So please ask questions in class if there's something you still don't understand after looking at this. All right, so when you're adding, there are 2 things you need to look for. Do the numbers you're adding have the same signs or different signs? So remember, the integers are really just positive and negative whole numbers. So if they are both negative or both positive, okay, that means they have the same signs, then you're going to add the numbers together. All right, and the answer after you add the numbers together is going to be the same sign as whatever the numbers started as. Okay, so for example, these numbers are both positive, so we're going to add them. 10 plus 6 is 16, and then your answer is going to stay positive because these were both positive. Here you have negative 3 plus negative 4. These are both negative, so I'm going to add them, and then your answer is going to stay negative because these were both negative. All right, if they have different signs, meaning one negative and one's positive, then instead you're going to subtract the numbers, and your answer is going to be the same sign as the larger or the most number. Okay, so what I mean by that, so you have a positive and a negative. These numbers are different signs. This one's positive and negative. So you're going to subtract 9 minus 3 and get 6. And then what did you have more of? Positive numbers or negative numbers? So if you think of 9 positives and 3 negatives, there are more positives than negatives, so your answer is positive. Here you have negative and a positive, so you're going to subtract. 12 minus 4 is 8. This time, what did you have more of? The negatives or the positives? Well, you had more negatives than positives, so your answer is negative. Okay? It's always good to think about money when you're doing integers. So if you owe someone $12 and you pay them back for it, you still owe them $8, so you're still negative. If you have $9 and you spend 3, then you still have $6. You didn't go in the hole. Subtracting, of the 4 operations, probably subtracting is the one that confuses people the most, only because it has an extra step that you have to remember to do. We call this step keep, change, change. That's just a way to remember what to do. Basically, when you're subtracting, what you want to do is you're changing this to addition. Because once it's an addition problem, then you can use the rules we just talked about up here. All right, so keeping, this is how you change it to addition. You keep the first number the same. You don't change it. You change the subtraction sign to adding. And you change the sign of the second number to the opposite, and then you follow the addition rules. The reason you can do this is that subtraction is just another way to say add the opposite, right? So if I'm subtracting 3, okay, or if I'm adding a negative 3, that's the same thing. 9 minus 3 is 6, and 9 plus negative 3 is 6. All right, so let's take a look at how the rule works. So I'm going to keep, change, change. So keep the 14. That means it doesn't change. It's still 14. I'm changing subtraction to addition, and I'm changing the second number to its opposite. So the opposite of negative 3 is positive 3. So now I have the new problem, 14 plus 3. These are the same sign, so when I add them, I get 17, and it stays positive because these are both positive. All right, here it's a subtraction problem, so I want to rewrite it as addition. I'm going to keep the negative 8, change to add, change 2 to the opposite. So this was the subtraction that changed to add. So this is just a regular 2. When I change it to the opposite, it's negative 2. So now I have this problem, negative 8 plus negative 2. So I'm using addition rules. These are the same. So I add them. And then because they're both negative, it stays negative, negative 10. All right. Multiplying and dividing, probably the easiest of the operations to do because they're the same. Multiplying and dividing use the same rules. If you're multiplying numbers that have the same signs, your answer is going to be positive. So these numbers are both positive. When I multiply 2 times 7, it's going to be positive. both of these numbers are negative. It doesn't matter that they're both negative. It just matters that they're the same. So a negative times a negative is still positive, and 3 times 7 is 21. All right? When they have different signs, your answer will always be negative. So 5 times negative 6, okay? The positive times a negative means this is going to be negative. So 5 times 6 is 30. This is negative 30. Negative 9 times 4. These are different, so my answer is negative, and 9 times 4 is 36. Okay, so a couple things I would just remind you of. Another way to remember the multiplication and division rules is to use what we call sleeping man. So if you see this guy, that's what we're talking about. So when you have same signs, if they're both negative, if I cover those up, I see that my answer is positive. If I have different signs, a negative and a positive, then when I cover those up, I see that my answer would be negative. But this only works for multiplying divide. Don't try to use it for adding and subtracting, or you'll get the wrong answer. Another thing I would remind you of is that multiplication has different ways it can be written. Okay, I can write it in parentheses as well, -2. Okay, I can write it like this, times 3. And I might have more than just 2 sets of numbers. I could have like times -11, something like that. So when that's the case, you do 2 numbers at a time. -2 times 3, those are different. So this is -6. But then when I multiply it times -11, these are the same, -6 times -11. So this becomes a positive 66. Another way to write multiplication, okay, besides the parentheses and besides the x, is to use the dot. So if I have -3 and then the dot, and then I have -4, all right? A negative times a negative is positive. So -3 times -4 is positive 12. Okay, so that's just another way to write multiplication. I just want you to see it. In fact, we don't use the x that much anymore because as we do more and more algebra, the x becomes a variable. We use it less as a multiplication sign. All right, for division, same rules as multiplication. The answer, when you have the same sign, is going to be positive. All right, so I have a positive and a positive, so my answer will be positive. 20 divided by 5, 4. Okay, I have a negative and a negative, so my answer will be positive, and I just divide like normal. -15 divided by -3 is a positive 5. Right? If they have different signs, my answer is negative. So 24 divided by 3 is 8, and this is positive, this is negative. They're different, so my answer is negative. -30 divided by 10, I have a negative and a positive. My answer will be negative. 30 divided by 10 is 3. Okay, and then I would just remind you, division also has another way it can be written. We can use the fraction for division as well. So if I have something like 16 over -4, something like that, that's another way to say division. So 16 divided by -4, 16 divided by 4 is 4, and then I have a positive negative, so my answer is negative, like that. Okay, so again, these are your integer operation rules. Oh, also included in your notes, sorry, where did that go? You might have a copy of this page. This is just another cheat sheet that we have made for you that kind of sums up all the rules on one page. Adding, same signs is what we just talked about. You add and keep the sign, different signs, subtract, and keep what you have the most of. Keep the sign of the one you have the most of. Subtraction, if you will remember to keep, change, then you'll go back to your addition rules. Okay, and then multiply, divide, you have this sleeping man guy. Okay, so 2 negatives, your answer is positive. A negative, positive, your answer is negative. All right, so that's how you use that. And we're going to be using these quite a bit, so keep these pages handy, especially if you may have forgotten them since last year. All right, I will see you soon.